Good evening, and welcome to the Mosquito Fire Community Information Meeting for Wednesday, September 14th. My name is Nathan Judy, Information Officer for California Interagency Incident Command Team 5. With me tonight on ASL is Jackie. This evening, you will hear from members of the Unified Command Team and our cooperators. After the formal briefing, we will answer questions emailed earlier today, and ones that are in the chat we will get to if we have time after the other questions are answered. The fire is currently at 63,776 acres, 20% contained. There are currently 3,655 personnel on this fire. Starting us out tonight, we're going to have our Operations Section Chief, Dave Saldani. Oh, no, sorry. You can say it again.
Hi, Dave Soldavini, Operations Section Chief with Incident Management Team 5. As far as what we're working on, I'd like to start down here in the Quintet area. We've had really good success with our containment lines, getting in there, mopping them up, getting in there really feeling, stirring, and drowning, and putting out that fire all along here, coming out to Volcanoville, along the Volcanoville Road, and then out and down into the middle fork of the American River. When we start getting down into this area of the Middle Fork, there's still a lot of work to be done down in that river canyon, getting in there, reinforcing that line, mopping that up, and really making sure that that fire's controlled. And then coming up out of the Middle Fork towards Forest Hill, and then out the Forest Hill Road to the east and out towards Michigan Bluff Road. Same thing, getting in there, making sure that this fire is really out and that this containment line is going to hold. And that's a high priority for us because that's how we're going to be able to give our thumbs up and say it's safe to the sheriffs that we're working with for you to get back in there. And so we're daily working with those sheriffs and coordinating what's going on the ground so that we can work towards that end. When you start getting out past Michigan Bluff Road and the Chicken Hawk Ridge area and the Seed Orchard, we're still working with an active fire edge across the entire eastern edge of the fire. And so what we're doing out here is a combination of efforts where we're using what's called a tactical firing operation. And we're putting fire down to create a wider fire break than we could just with dozers or with a hand crew. So if the fire starts coming out of these creeks or the river drainage down here, it has something to run into, lose some steam, and not cross the Forest Hill Road. Where we're really working at right now is where we're going to be coming around out by Robinson Flat and down south towards French Meadows Reservoir, getting that prepared, giving ourselves plenty of time to be successful in keeping this fire as small as possible. When you come down from French Meadows, one of the biggest obstacles we've got is the North Fork of the Middle Fork of the American River. Steep, rocky, nasty terrain. It's just not safe to put people in, and we just don't have the time with the fire spread to really get in there safely and effectively and get that done right now. We're looking at opportunities in the American Hill area to tighten that up, but when you get right down to it right now, we're having to look out here. Coming down into here, we start getting into the middle fork of the American River and being able to bring that down on the south side of the river in here. And we've been coordinating with SPI. We've got a lot of firefighters out there finding ways to start bringing this fire line together, having a really good plan, bringing it down towards the Rubicon River, and done some really good work down here in the Rubicon and found a very improbable place where we're anticipating good success several miles further to the west than we initially anticipated in getting across that river with our line and expecting it to hold, and then tying that into Wentworth Springs Road in the Stumpy Meadows area. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Next up, we're going to have our fire behavior analyst, Jonathan Pangburn.
Good evening, Jonathan Pangburn, Fire Behavior. So you just heard a great operational update talking about the firing operation and some of the control line and tactics that are going to be in play to try to bring it around to stop that eastward spread. I'm going to start down at the southernmost end in Stumpy Meadows. The weather is generally in our favor on this side in terms of wind spread or wind direction, helping the fire to spread from the southeast to the north, or southwest to the northeast. That is helping firefighters with the control efforts here in the Stumpy Meadows area in the reservoir. Turning out by Devil's Peak, up into this area, Ramsey Crossing, and out toward Greek Store, we're getting into heavy, heavy fuel loading that was not involved in either the King Fire or the American Fire. So this is unburned area previously, heavy, heavy fuels. So if you looked up in the sky and saw a large column of smoke today, that was from this particular area that has the heaviest fuel loading, and also had good clear air to promote some of that fire growth. However, that fire did produce that smoke to push over out to the northeast, which did slightly slow down the spread in this particular area out in the kind of Deadwood Road, Deadwood Ridge, which was fantastic to help firefighters who are continuing that firing operation that you heard about along Forest Hill Road to make sure it doesn't cross the divide. As we come back down into Forest Hill proper, it is looking fantastic. Between the firing operation along Forest Hill Road itself and then the mop-up that was in Forest Hill itself, it is looking fantastic in here, and firefighters are doing a really good job of making sure that that's not going to have continued spread. And finally, I'm going to come back down into the spot fire that was adjacent to Todd Valley. Firefighters put in some excellent effort. We did not see any spread in this area. It was just filling in nicely, and they're trying to make sure that it stays within the control lines so that it continues to protect Todd Valley, Forest Hill, Volcanoville, and towns below, such as Georgetown. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate that. Next up from Placer County, we have Air Pollution Control Officer Eric White.
Good evening. I just wanted to share some updates on air quality here in Placer County. I think as most people have probably seen, we've seen improved air quality in most places throughout the county. The exception to that really has been from about the fire up to the Sierra Crest on the west side of the Sierras. We do have a health advisory in effect through at least Friday for all of Placer County, as the smoke impacts can be intermittent depending upon wind direction. We will look to revisit that for the weekend at the end of the week. The forecast is for conditions to continue to stay the way they are right now, so we would expect continued impacts on air quality on the west slope, with perhaps some impacts in the Tahoe Basin as well. The Air District is currently operating 7 air quality monitors specifically for the wildfire event. So we use those to inform the decisions that we make regarding the health advisory and to provide the public current information about PM conditions. The best source for the public to get this information is on the US EPA's Fire and Smoke Map website. A link to that can be found on the Air District's website. Our website is placerair.org. If you go to that website, you should be able to find a link to smoke impacts. You'll find information about current conditions, where you can get more information about things such as the proper use of N95 masks, how to build low-cost HEPA filters for your house if you have smoke inside your house, links to real-time data on air quality, as well as information on the health effects of air on sensitive populations, in particular children, older adults, as well as those that have asthma and cardiovascular diseases. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Eric. Next up from AT&T, we have Environmental Health and Safety Supervisor Kevin Young.
Kevin Young, AT&T. Just want to give a quick update on our facilities and what to expect when you're able to return home, pending no more damage. But starting with AT&T Mobility, our wireless services, you should not expect any outages. We do have 2 sites within the area that are running on generator backup and will get cut back over to power once it's re-energized. Our wireline side, we did take some minimal damage over in the Volcanoville area. Some of you will expect a few outages when you return home. We are assessing that and starting the repairs right away. For the Otter Creek School over off of Volcanoville Road, I wouldn't expect any outages there when you're able to reopen as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. Next up from Placer County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Josh Barnhart.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll start with the map again. There's been, thankfully today, no changes to evacuation zones. Again, the purple is the fire. Outside of that is the evacuation order area, and the yellow is the evacuation warning zone. Just a little reminder, if you're under evacuation orders or if your warning zone becomes an order, that means to leave immediately. If it so happens that your area changed to an evacuation warning zone, that means pack everything up and just be ready to leave quickly. If you do hear those high-low sirens from our deputies, that means it's time to go. Obviously, fire danger remains high for Forest Hill proper and Todd Valley. And obviously the question comes up, when are we going to repopulate? As evidenced by yesterday, you can see how quickly the fire can move in, and we just can't do that so quickly. We just want to make sure everybody's safe before we can repopulate. As far as numbers are concerned, no changes for people evacuated. We have under orders, we have 5,976 out of 2,644 houses. And under warning, we have 282 and 156 with 90 refusals. As far as evacuees to our shelter at Sierra College, we have 99 from Placer County and 9 from El Dorado County for a total of 108. At our animal shelters, we have 198 at our Placer County Animal Shelter and 174 between the Gold Country Fairgrounds and Field Haven. And I'll just end again with saying thank you to the community for your continued support. As evidenced by yesterday, I'm sure you could see on social media and the media how hard the firefighters are working for you. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Next, from El Dorado County Sheriff's Office, we have Sergeant Anthony Princip.
Thank you. Anthony Principe, Public Information Officer for the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office. I want to start off kind of the same with what Placer County said. We have no new evacuation orders or evacuation warnings in place. That also means that we don't have any news on repopulation at this time. I know we're getting a lot of questions about when people are going to be able to get home, get back to their normal routine. We're all here working to try to get you there, and that's our goal, is to get you guys back home as quickly as we can. We're in meetings every day, all day long, discussing just that, and we hope to do it as quickly but as safely as we can to get you guys back home. 1 second. Okay, regarding when repopulation does happen, we will send out the rave alerts. It's the same thing that came out during evacuations. They will come out and let you know when it is time to repopulate. If you haven't already, you can sign up for those at ready.edso.org. For those without internet access or connectivity, you can also use 211 if you need to check the status of permitted structures to see what happened to them during the fire. For staffing levels, we have 12 EDSO personnel and 11 mutual aid working 24/7 in the impacted areas. This is 24/7 patrol and also traffic control points. With that, we've had multiple arrests. We had 2 arrests in the last 24 hours, and this was for drug-related and theft-related type cases. For evacuated persons, we have 5,400 under evacuation order, and we have 4,300 under evacuation warning. I want to remind people that we still have openings within our shelters, both human shelters and animal shelters. They have capacity for more, so if you need that, that is still available. If you have issues with animals in your homes, if you need animals to be fed, watered, or if you need animals to be evacuated and you are evacuated, you can call Animal Services. Animal Services can be reached at 530-621-5795. If you're looking to make financial donations for the fire, those can be done at the El Dorado Community Foundation at eldoradocf.org. And lastly, all this information and information on evacuations, the human and animal shelters, as long as road closures and more, can be found at the edcgov.us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. And with us tonight from the Tahoe National Forest, Supervisor Eli Alano.
Hey, good evening. My name's Eli Alano. I'm the Forest Supervisor for the Tahoe National Forest. On behalf of our unified agencies here, CAL FIRE and the Forest Service, first I want to thank you all for the support that you've been giving to all of us. It makes a huge difference, and you know that There are so many folks working. I think they said over 3,600 folks working this fire. Firefighters, as well as all of the people that support the firefighters to make their jobs possible here in the fire camp, out on the line, bringing supplies to the line. It's really quite an operation to behold. For the last week, we've talked a lot about what we've been doing to protect life and property, and that has been absolutely our number one priority. I wanted to take a little bit of time also to talk about some of the other actions that we've been taking. Dave Soldevini talked a little bit about what we've been doing on the eastern side of the fire here. I wanted to let you know that in addition to when you see this red line, I want you to know that it doesn't mean that everything within this red area has been destroyed. There's been a lot of work to protect resources, both within this red line and work that's occurring to ensure that some of the resources in here are protected as we work towards a control line for the entire fire. So what are those resources that we're working to protect on the eastern side of this fire? Well, there's private land. And Dave Soldevini mentioned that we've been working closely with SPI, one of the large private landowners in this area, to help protect their values. There are other private landowners as well. There are also important water and power infrastructure lines and facilities within this area that we've been working hard to protect. Also, some of you know, and I've seen it in some of the chat, that the northernmost stand of giant sequoias is right here in this area, and we've been working hard to ensure that that grove of giant sequoias is going to be protected. The Last Chance Cemetery, historic cemetery that we've been working hard to protect. And then just today, we were wrapping historic cabins in the Robinson Flat area, which is way up at the north end of the northeast end of the fire here. So those are just a couple of things. There are also some tribal resources within this area that we've been trying to protect. So I wanted to let you all know that in addition to all of the work we've been doing on our number one priority, we've been doing other work as well. And thanks to some of the easing of other fires across the United States, we've been bringing some additional resources to help work, firefighting resources to help work and on these outer control lines and to protect those resources. Thanks.
Thank you, Ellie. Appreciate that. Next up, we're going to bring our Unified Incident Commander from CAL FIRE, Dusty Martin.
Good evening. My name is Dusty Martin. I'm one of the Unified Incident Commanders. So tonight you got a pretty comprehensive briefing from our operations section on what is going around the fire. One of the things I want to talk to you about tonight is the events that occurred yesterday. So yesterday, the fire spotted across the River Canyon. It was nothing short of a true firefight that happened in the Forest Hill area. We mobilized a bunch of firefighters from around the fire to surge into the area. We accessed our local resources that were still in fire stations, amongst many other partners to come in. And one of the things to note is, as was talked here today with operations, is we put contingency lines in. Those lines get put in for the in case of. And yesterday, that was a prime factor. We had contingency lines built in the Forest Hill area, and I can tell you that that fire remained within those contingency lines. We gave every effort we had yesterday with as many resources as possible into that area, both on ground and in air. And just as one of the points to think about, with our air resources, in a matter of 3 hours, our aircraft dropped over 220,000 gallons of fire retardant in the area to help that fire as it jumped across the river. Now, that wasn't the only thing that was going on around the fire yesterday as well, as we had a lot of good work that went around the perimeter. And as our operations talked about, as you start seeing some of that black line come in around the map, that is all the hard work that is going on out there by the firefighters around. We heard operations talk about that east side a little bit and the work that's being done out there to try and connect those dots in some of the steepest, ruggedest terrain that is out there between multiple river drainages. And that is a priority for us each and every day. We heard our law enforcement partners tonight talk about evacuations. I want you to know it is our number one priority to get each and every one of you back into your homes. But as yesterday showed us, we have to make sure that the area is secure before we bring you back into your homes. We are doing that every single day and keeping that as one of our top priorities. Life and property has been messaged out to our firefighters every single day with an aggressive, full suppression firefighting tactics. So we continue to do that. We continue to work with our partners, with our utility companies, and as soon as it's safely as possible, we will get you back into your homes. Understand the frustrations. We just need to make sure that it is safe prior to you getting in there. With that, thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Commander. And that concludes the formal portion of the meeting. Next, we're going to go to questions and answer some of those questions that were submitted earlier and through email. We're going to bring back up our from Placer County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant John Barnhart, with some questions that were submitted to him.
Thank you. Question number 1, do you anticipate adding a warning for Heather Glen Mobile Home Park? And the answer is no, you are out of the affected area as of now. Number 2, will I get an alert when I can go home? I did receive an alert for mandatory order to evacuate. And the answer is yes. Once we start notification process for repopulation, you'll receive another alert. The third question, why does the map only show the damage to Volcanoville houses? And why doesn't it also show the damaged houses in Michigan Bluff? And we're talking about 2 different counties and how we decide to notify people. We decided in Placer County to notify the Michigan Bluff residents in person and not put the information on the map just yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Appreciate that. We've got some questions for our fire behavior, so we're going to bring back up Jonathan Pangburn.
Good evening. The question, weather-related, is with a chance for upper elevation snow this weekend and a chance of rain in the fire area, will it be enough to aid in extinguishing the fire? Looks like elevation of eastern portion of Mosquito is in the 5,000 foot range, correct? And I'll just take a moment not only to answer this, but to admit I was remiss and did not cover weather in my briefing, so I apologize for that. So I am here now to do so and let you know that over the next few days we are anticipating similar wind and maybe a little bit cooler temperatures, which will definitely assist in the firefighting effort. Nonetheless, we're going to be seeing that wind persistent out of the southwest, pushing toward the northeast. There is a chance of a system moving into the area over the weekend, possibly as early as Saturday night, more like a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday time frame. And there is not enough model agreement for certainty. However, there is enough that we can put out. The message that the meteorologist has put out to us is there is about a 60% chance of maybe a quarter inch over that time frame, which is enough for wetting rain. It's enough to help in the suppression efforts, especially, yes, on the eastern portion of the fire. The snow level, since that was asked in the question, right now, the meteorologists from the National Weather Service are telling us the snow level is going to be about probably more like 8,000, so I'm not quite sure that that's going to help us out there. But nonetheless, we are looking at, in the future, the weather system coming in with stronger winds, still from the same direction, but a little bit of moisture, which will definitely be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. We've also had some questions come in for our operations, so we're going to bring back up Dave Saldivini.
Hello again. I've got about 7 or 8 questions here, so just be patient with me as I work through them. I tried to get them all grouped together for you. The first couple of questions here is how likely is the fire to reach the Emigrant Gap area? There are also questions that came in about how likely the fire is to reach Alta and the Dutch Flat area, both up on Highway 80. And then conversely, southward travel, how likely is it to get to Bollock Pines or Camino? And while there's a possibility that could happen, and we've seen a lot of really large fire growth in the last few years, I I would like to say that there's a low possibility of that happening under our current conditions and what we're expecting to have happen. If conditions do change, that's something that we'll be communicating out, and we will be doing our best to make you aware of. Moving on. After yesterday's flare-up near Forest Hill, what is the likelihood of the fire continuing to burn southerly enough to spot across the river in new territory to the east and then to charge back up to Volcanoville again, especially in light of the prevailing westerly winds? With a follow-up question, what contingency plans are in place should this happen? So the likelihood of that happening is there, just like the likelihood of having some large fire growth. But what Jonathan was talking about with the fire behavior, that westerly and southwesterly flow will be pushing the fire and the embers, and I'll be covering spot fires here in a bit. There's a question on that as well, away from Volcanoville and away from that area, which will be less likely to allow what we call alignment, where everything comes together in a perfect storm to push fire back towards Volcanoville. So I'm going to put that in the low category, but something we're aware of. And so when you ask what contingency plans we have in place, we have a large group of heavy equipment and fire behavior experts putting in lines in areas and reducing fuels. So if something like this does happen, we'll be in a better position to control the fire when it's moving or to limit that fire behavior as it comes into the area, so we'll be able to get in there and save homes. Okay, so now the next question is, what protections from the Mosquito fire are in place or being put in place for Todd Valley Estates? So the short answer there is several. Yesterday, when we had the spot fire just to the east of Todd Valley Estates, there was already dozer line that had been put down from the Forest Hill Divide towards the Middle Fork. We have redundant dozer lines going to the west, as well as east-west lines that have been put in there to create containment should we have a spot fire in that area again. And again, reducing fuels along those, so if there is a spot fire, making it so more firefighters can be in there safely to protect your homes. Next question, has fire gotten to King Fire Scar? And right down around Stumpy Meadows and a little to the west of it, it has bumped up against that scar. I was up in a helicopter day looking at it. But as you start coming to the east and you start crossing over the Rubicon, it's not quite there yet, but it is close. And one of the nice things with that is with that fire scar, it's giving us a lot of opportunities to make good fire line that's going to hold. Next, can you explain what exactly the percentage means and how high the percentage has to be when we are allowed to go home? So percentage or containment, just to start there, containment means that the firefighters that are out there are telling us that, hey, we've got this line in, we have fire to the edge of it, and we have mopped that fire up to the point where we are confident that this line has a good chance of holding under the current conditions. And we know what the current conditions have been with those southwest winds and things getting dry and hot. And so having spent most of my career out there, that's like your calling card saying like, hey, I did my job. And this is looking good right here. So that comes up to us, and we put these black lines on the map. And what we do is we just look at the fire perimeter, and what has a black line versus what has a red line is that percentage of containment that's being talked about. Now, as far as repopulating into an area, containment doesn't have to specifically do with deciding to repopulate an area. First and foremost, that choice is going to be made by law enforcement, by the county sheriffs. And I alluded to it earlier that we have a daily meeting where we discuss this. When you come back in, things we're looking for is your safety. First and foremost, when you get back into your house, is it safe for you to be there? We have one person that we're working with has a story about a child going out and falling into a burning stump hole. We don't accept that. So we're looking at your safety from the fire point of view. We're looking at your safety from propane, from electricity, from gas services. So in that repopulation meeting, we have public utilities, PG&E, and all of these people who have a stake in ensuring that it's safe for you to get back into your house when we say, yeah, let's go ahead and repopulate. It can be a time-consuming process, but it's something we want to get done right. And conversely, one of the things we really want to avoid happening is letting you back into your homes and then having to ask you to evacuate again in short order. So that's what goes on with that repopulation decision. It is an ongoing process with lots of people communicating on a daily basis to get you back as soon as we can. And then last but not least is a fire behavior question. Can you explain spot fire and jumping behavior more? So when we're talking about spot fires, if you could think of an ember that's been blown up from a campfire and you see it in the night blowing around and then moving on, that's what is going to cause a spot fire. Call them firebrands. And so those firebrands get blown up during the day or during the night, and they can travel over our containment lines and then land in what we call a receptive fuel bed. So, landing on rocks, we're not concerned about. Landing in a bunch of pine needles stacked nicely with some sticks around it, that's a receptive fuel bed. And when this is a daily concern we have and something we look at, and our fire behavior expert, Jonathan, will let us know what the chances are, the probability of ignition for one of those embers to ignite a spot fire outside of the line. So that's what we mean by spot fires, embers that are, or firebrands that have come up off the fire and go out. And with a fire like this, we can have spot fires a mile or more ahead of the main fire being carried by those winds. So we're aware of that, and that's something we're looking for. We have air attack platforms up in the air, keeping eyes on the fire from above to catch these things small. And we also have lookouts looking for that type of stuff. The jumping fire behavior in the second part of that question, for the fire jumping the line. Sometimes that can just be a short range spot across the line so that you have fire just right there, right off your fire line where you already have firefighters. But it can also be where you have fire line, and where I was talking about up here, this firing operation, when the flaming front comes up, it doesn't have space to cool down and to die out. So it's enough heat that it just keeps pushing clean through that fire line, crosses to the other side. And so that's when the fire would jump the line. I hope that answers your questions clearly.
One more question for you, Dave.
I've got one more question. How likely will fire reach more eastward towards Loon Lake, Rubicon Trails, Homewood, South Lake Tahoe? Oof, we've got a lot of places there. So let's start. South Lake Tahoe's way off the map. I'd like to put that in the very, very low category. And in South Lake Tahoe, coming up to Homewood, very, very low category. Coming on to Rubicon Trail, that is an east-west road that starts at Loon Lake, which is right here on this map, and then goes off towards Lake Tahoe. On the spot right now, I don't think I can give an honest answer, but definitely there's not a high probability of that happening. It's less than that. And to give a thoughtful answer, I would have to confer with some other folks about that. And I apologize for not being able to do that. And then with Loon Lake, it's going to be the same thing. That's right here. It's not likely. It's not a high probability it's going to get here. But to really give a thoughtful answer, I would need a little more time and to confer with some experts on that one. So I apologize for not being able to give a better answer.
Thank you, Dave. We really appreciate you answering those questions that were submitted online and the ones that were submitted in the chat. We want to make sure we're answering your questions for you. So that was the questions we've had for tonight that we couldn't answer in the chat. We want to make sure that you continue to submit those questions to us. Email them for us for tomorrow's meeting. We'll answer the ones we can in the chat. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your attendance tonight. We will talk to you tomorrow.